welcome back. We're doing Around the Aether Cooler. It's just a little podcast with me, Mike. Tonight joining us is Nicol, aka BadwolfMTG. How you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Good. I'm glad everyone's good tonight. Anyway, M19 is fully spoiled, so we got a lot to look at. We're going to focus on looking at the Planeswalkers and the Elder Dragons, some of the more anticipated cards coming from M19. Just take a look and see what they might do in a standard format, in a limited format, and just give our overall opinions on them. Because it's really late and we're sleepy, and we just want to just look at cards for a little bit.
Yeah, I really hope you guys like the Atraxa video because I only got 2 hours of sleep to get that thing out today. So please check that out if you guys have not yet. It's pretty cool, if I do say so myself.
Mike, was well worth your lack of sleep because it turned out beautifully.
Well, creepy, but wonderful.
Yeah, very creepy. Well,
it had a very strong Halloween feel to it.
Yeah, that's what some people were saying in the comments.
Yeah, they hit the nail right on the head right there. It's perfect.
Anyways, what do you guys say that we start with alphabetically and possibly one of the more powerful mythics in the set with Ajani, Adversary of Tyrants.
Yes, Ajani, Adversary of Tyrants, a 4-mana Planeswalker, double white, comes in with 4 loyalty counters, +1 ability, put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures, -2 ability, return target creature card with converted mana cost 2 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield, and its ultimate -7. You get an emblem with, quote, at the beginning of your end step, create 3 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. Wow, that's way better than I thought it was.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, so this is obviously a very powerful ultimate, but we know that Planeswalkers cannot be judged on their ultimates alone because rarely do you ever get to trigger those. So let's judge Ajani at face value and figure out if he's a good Planeswalker or not in M19.
Well, for standard, off the bat, I would say he's got good cat synergy. I mean, it's got cat on the card. You know, it's going to be at least a 1 of in a cat deck. Now, how many you put in there, that's a little more questionable because
there's some really good 4-drops for cats too. So
yeah, 4 and 5 drops. Like your curve is going to be a little higher. So, and the +1/+1 counter for his +1 ability isn't great because if you're behind and you don't have any cats on board to throw counters on, not the best ability.
Yeah, it definitely does fit well in that kind of deck, and we do know cats are getting a pretty big boost in M19. A lot of support there for a tribal. But when I look at Ajani, I definitely think like slamming him down after History of Benalia might actually be really good. It could be a great follow-up card to History of Benalia.
Yeah, it certainly could. I think if you're looking to use the +1 though, you do want to try to abuse it. In that case, you may run it in a Abzan counters shell, where you're running a Winding Constrictor so that you can get double the counters, you know, on his tick up there.
Yeah.
And of course you got Walking Ballista is always a great target for it, so there's definitely some colors that can take more advantage of the counters, but he does kind of defend himself. But again, it's one of those things, if he's your only card that you've played in the game so far, he is stone useless because you don't have any creatures in the graveyard yet, and you don't have any creatures on board, so you know that's a couple points against him, I think.
So he does have, like you said, there's a pseudo way to protect himself, not only using his +1 to bolster a board that you already have, but if you have a board, that's his protection right there. But if he's going out on an empty board on your side, at least he can use his -2 and get something onto the battlefield.
Hopefully
something that can protect it a little bit better than just one turn. But if you're probably doing that when you're slamming him down, he probably isn't long for the world.
Yep. Any thoughts, Nicole?
I mean, that's a 2 mana cost, 2 or less creature that you're bringing back. That's not gonna do much.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, there could have been a case to be made back when, what is that little guy called? Well, not a little guy for very long when he's on the field. The Long Tusk Cub is a 2-drop and very powerful 2-drop, but you need energy. And now that Attune with Aether is out, that in many ways like makes the Abzan counters list a lot harder to play because we lost our classic 1 mana tutor up a land spell, and the energy that was stapled onto it was really, really useful with Long Tusk Up to the point of being broken. That's why it got banned. So yeah.
Well, Ajani at face value to me definitely looks like he's signaling like weenies matter.
Yeah, he certainly could. And of course, Cat Tribal, like, go wide strategies. The big plus side for him is his ultimate does win the game. It's not as good as like Liliana's ultimate, Liliana the Last Hope, where you get the exponential zombies, but 3/1/1, cats with lifelink each turn is gonna get you stabilized because not only are you blocking, but you're gaining life no matter what. So,
yeah.
It's kind of a wait and see. There might be a shell for it.
So, in M19, it does look like the 5 Planeswalkers that are coming out in M19 kind of do work around archetypes that are already existing in Standard. So Ajani kind of fits in fluidly with a couple, but there's obviously something there that they're trying to push for. You'll see later in the other Planeswalkers that we take a look at where their archetypes are way more defined. So let's actually get into an example of that right now with a new Planeswalker card for Sarkhan Vol, Sarkhan Fireblood. He is a 3 mana legendary Planeswalker, double red, comes into play with 3 loyalty counters, +1, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Another +1, add 2 mana of any combination of colors, spend this mana only to cast dragon spells, and a -7, just like Ajani, ultimate to create 4 5/5 red dragon creature tokens with flying.
I really, really want to love him. I mean, he's red. I love red, but I can't get behind it. It's just it's so narrow. It's so narrow. And looking at how many dragons there are right now, it's not enough.
Yeah,
yes, the narrowness is too much.
Not to mimic what everyone else is saying, but it kind of looks like Tibalt 2.0.
Yeah, it's very easy for us to go out there and make that kind of connection. In this standard environment, like, I don't know, is it worse than Tibalt? Maybe. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying some people might think it. I ain't saying it. I'm keeping myself free of all criticism, but I would say it's definitely not good.
I think to protect himself, I think the only option that you have is Dragon Egg, I believe is a 2-drop. So considering you've got 1 dragon spell that you could possibly get out the same turn as Sarkhan is a really big ding against it. Because when you have a 3 mana Planeswalker, you want it to get onto the field early and start generating advantage for you. And Sarkhan just is in a weird place where you don't really want to be dropping him on turn 4 or 5, but that's kind of where you have to because of the way his abilities line up, which just is not great.
Yeah, I don't feel like you said, I don't feel like you generate much of an advantage with his abilities. I mean, you would think that adding 2 mana of any combination of colors to your mana pool for a +1 would be amazing on a 3 mana cost creature, or a Planeswalker, but using it only to cast dragon spells is such a huge, crippling downside. It's nice that you can actually get out the Elder Dragons that we're going to look at later, because they're all three colors, but outside of that, you're not going to be able to use that for basically anything. Well, unless you're running a Dragon Tribal deck, which would be very difficult in Standard when M19 drops.
Yeah, there are only 17, 18 total dragons.
And they're all big mythics that cost a lot.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
I don't think.
The bad part about the big tribals like this is with dinos, we got a lot of lower curve dinos that help, fill out the curve a bit so that you could, feasibly defend yourself early or get in attacks early. But dragons almost always occupy the 5 mana, 6 mana, 7 mana, 8 mana slots.
Yeah.
Which you only typically, even in like a ramp deck, you only want, 10 of those tops. And that's only if you're playing ramp. And if you're playing mid range, you only want 4 or 5 cards that are in that mana range. So yeah.
And let's talk about. I know we I don't want to harp on ultimates too much because you'll never get to. You oftentimes won't ever get to use them. Where Ajani's ultimate was a game winner, Sarkhan's surprisingly isn't, because there's board wipe effects that can just destroy all 4 of the dragons that you summon. Where Ajani's is an emblem that creates the tokens every turn. I just thought it was funny that it takes 4 turns to get to his ultimate, and by some miracle, if you make it, there's a chance that your opponent could be able to wipe the board, and you just wasted a Planeswalker with 7 loyalty.
Yep.
I'm just saying, of course, in most cases, that is going to win you the game, 4/5/5 flyers, but there are going to be some cases where that just doesn't win you the game.
Settle the wreckage.
Yep.
Yes.
Settle the wreckage, fumigate. Oh, there's so many things that just
there's
can blow you out.
There's a board with an M19 too, isn't there?
Yes,
Cleansing
there is.
Nova, destroy all creatures.
Yep.
That's hilarious.
Well,
anyway,
is there really much
guys,
more to say about Sarkhan?
No, the only thing that we can say about Sarkhan is they better print some dragons in the upcoming sets while he's in standard, or he's useless. Oh, also, probably note, actively awful Planeswalker for limited. He's worse than removal.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
By far.
Yeah, Vivienne Reed is also not great, but you can make a case for her because she's got repeatable card advantage. But
yeah,
looting is not or it's not even looting, is it? It's rummaging when you discard it. Yeah. Oh, that's definitely not worth it.
Boy. Yeah. Don't say this very often, guys, but Planeswalker Unlimited, just don't even try Sarkhan.
Nope.
Well, let's go over to, you just mentioned her name, Vivienne Reed. Now, we talked about her a little bit when she was first spoiled, but since we're going over all the Planeswalkers right now, we might as well bring her into the discussion again. Nicole, we actually didn't get your opinions on this card first time around, so I'd love to hear your take on it. A legendary Planeswalker, Vivienne, 5 mana, double green, 5 mana, 5 loyalty counters, +1. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. -3, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. And -8 ultimate, you get an emblem with creatures you control get +2/+2 and have vigilance, trample, and indestructible.
One of the things I don't like about her is she's very creature centric. Her emblem means nothing without creatures, and I mean, you get a creature or a land card, that's great, but for protection, all she has is destroy creature with flying at that point. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're going to want to have creatures on the board before you play her, and that's just, with all those board wipes, is not going to be easy to keep out.
Yeah, exactly. Her +1, if you slam her on an empty board, for example, you just spend 5 mana. Let's say you play her on turn 5. You use her +1. You're not going to be able to play whatever creature you decide to get out. It leaves her very vulnerable, and her removal, quote unquote, is super, super narrow. Unless your opponent is just coming at you with all the flyers in the world. Even in that case, she's only able to remove 1 before she has to start, using her adding loyalty ability. So I don't know how good it is. Again, it's kind of like a Johnny, where if you're using their minus ability when you slam them for protection purposes, you're probably not in a good position to keep that Planeswalker very long.
Yeah, and you know what the best flyers are in the format right now? Glorybringer, which has haste, and Rekindling Phoenix, which she doesn't even remove. Gets its egg and then comes back the next turn to finish her off. So
and guess what? The egg doesn't have flying, so Vivienne, even though it's a stationary object, you're gonna miss it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, her ultimate. I mean, I don't know how many times we gotta say this. It's good. It would probably win you the game as long as you have creatures, but at the same time, like Nicole said, if you don't have creatures out, it does nothing.
Yeah. I mean, Settle the Wreckage exiles, right? So Indestructible doesn't even help that case.
Nope.
Yep.
And I think, honestly, like, the biggest sin of this card is just the fact that Watley Radiant Champion exists, because if tokens were viable right now, Vivienne would maybe go, in a go-wide deck, but Watley Radiant Champion is already a much better Planeswalker for that deck. It costs one less. It can gain so much loyalty that it defends itself just by having a ton of loyalty, when you can play it on a big board. And then its ultimate is so much better because you get to draw a card every time a creature enters the battlefield, so she's got tough competition in the green, slot. Also, we still have the Nissa from Aether Revolt, who was, excellent as well, and has the same mana cost too, so just not looking great right now.
So I don't know exactly what deck Vivienne Reid would want to be in. I feel like it's like some kind of weird, I don't even want to say ramp, but just like Stompy, maybe? Just to get something big with her +1 into your hand. But at the same time, like, I don't know. Her abilities, they just don't seem to do enough impact on a board to really put her in a specific archetype, if that makes sense.
Yeah, honestly, I think the deck that she belongs in is a Planeswalker deck.
Right, just to fill another Planeswalker spot.
Even though she already does have a Planeswalker deck, just put both of them in there.
Yep.
All right.
Oh yeah, she does. She does have a Planeswalker deck, doesn't she?
Yeah, and to be totally honest, her Planeswalker deck card is almost better than this version, which is really sad.
Yeah, but her art for her Planeswalker deck, Planeswalker card is so much better in my opinion.
Oh yeah, so it's almost better on both fronts.
Yeah, they really should have flip-flopped that just to give it some redeeming factor. Anyway, enough about Vivienne Reid. We've talked about her. We just kind of unanimously don't think that she's very good.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to Tezzeret, Artifice Master. 5 loyalty Planeswalker for 3 generic double blue, +1. Create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. A 0 loyalty ability, draw a card. If you control 3 or more artifacts, draw 2 cards instead. -9 ultimate, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, search your library for a permanent card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library.
Sign me up for this guy.
Yes, this is okay. This is a good Planeswalker.
Why do blue always get the best Planeswalkers?
It does seem to be a theme.
I think it's partly to do with the fact that blue, Planeswalkers are kind of a control type of card at the end of the day.
Yeah, because they're constantly out. They're a static effect almost.
Because they generate repeatable card advantage, which is what control decks want. So I think that's why you get the best ones in blue. But
yeah. But all around, at all levels, this card is just better than everything else that we've looked at so far. It's +1, protects him. His 0 is a card advantage, straight up, plus really amazing card advantage if you control artifacts, which he makes himself.
Yeah, it's just like the perfect recipe right there.
He's not too overcost. He's 5 mana for 5 loyalty, perfectly fine.
Takes you, 5 turns to hit the ultimate at that point?
Yeah, of course the ultimate will win you the game.
Yeah, it will.
Ooh, yeah. I think his biggest weakness is the fact that Teferi is in the format, so he's not gonna shell, he's not gonna go straight into a control shell because Teferi is always just gonna be the better de facto option. However, even at the RPTQ, I faced multiple blue-black artifact decks that are pretty amazing, and he actually synergizes really well with Karn, because Karn makes the constructs that'll get bigger with his Thopters as well, and they curve right into each other, so you can play Karn, make a construct, and then next turn play Tezzeret, make a Thopter, and then they're pumping each other up, and you have a flyer now. Also, the Thopters synergize incredibly well with the Antiquities War, because you get a bunch of 1/1 Thopters out, and they seem fairly harmless because they're all 1/1s, but then if Antiquities War fires, all of a sudden they're all 5/5 flyers that you have to deal with. So Yeah,
there's definitely an artifact archetype out there. It's definitely going to come into play with M19, because M19 has a lot of like weird Thopter kind of synergies to it. If you look at all the blue cards, there's a lot of things that create Thopters or do things with artifacts and Thopters. So that's definitely something that they're trying to push. Like you said, Mike, it works perfectly with Karn. Karn's going to push the artifact deck really hard, and so is Tezzeret, honestly. Yeah, it's it's not as control-y as you would normally see from a blue Planeswalker, but at the same time, it's kind of going for a different kind of deck.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Huh. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think the only knock against it is that particular competitive artifact deck I mentioned kind of favors more lower cost spells. Like the 5 mana might be a little much, but I mean, because he can win the game on his own, I think you still slam him in there as at least a 1 or 2 of. Like, he's definitely not going to be a 4 of like Teferi. He's not that. He's not nearly as good as Teferi, but with the correct synergies, he's pretty incredible.
Yep, and it continues the saga. Blue Planeswalkers just completely smash red Planeswalkers.
Yep.
Sorry, Nicole.
Now that I'm looking at it, what permanent would you guys want to get with his ultimate?
A Teferi? Is that what you do? I don't play blue, so...
I think in this case you'd probably grab Antiquities War out of your deck and just because you can have you'll probably have 4 copies of it if that's your win condition, and then you can just keep. I forgot that it's repeated. It's at the beginning of each end step. You search your library and put
Omniscience. Omniscience.
Ooh, yeah.
Omniscience.
That's a juicy
you
target.
Want that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously his ultimate's gonna win you the game. I wasn't even thinking, like, when you asked me the question, I was like, wow, would that even be a possibility in reality? I guess it would, but...
Well, because right now we don't have any Eldrazi, so, like, there's nothing, there's no, like, permanent that you're going to grab that's just going to end the game on the spot, so... Right. But in the blue-black, artifact shell, you just grab Antiquities War. If they can deal with it, you grab another Antiquities War, or you can grab Karn, in your end step and get him out. Although it is interesting that it's the end step, because then you can't do anything with, like, a Planeswalker or a Saga, actually. Oh, actually, the Saga would still fire.
Yeah, when Saga comes into play. So. Yeah. But it is interesting the way they worded it at the beginning of the end step. But still, I mean, it's an emblem that you're going to do it forever, and you're going to win.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, and the last Planeswalker we're going to take a look at, it's another Planeswalker with a very heavy tribal feel, and that's another Liliana. Liliana, untouched by death, 4 loyalty, 4 mana, 2 generic double black. +1, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. If at least one of them is a zombie card, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. -2, target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of zombies you control. Her -3, you may cast zombie cards from your graveyard this turn.
Yeah. That's not bad. Like, it's not nearly as good as Liliana the Last Hope. Or,
that's
a few other
Majesty.
Incarnations. I would actually say she's pretty close to Liliana Death's Majesty.
Okay.
It depends on how you build the deck, because you can ultimate this the turn you play her, and in a zombies deck that could be just crazy, depending on like the mana, the curve of your deck. Whereas Liliana Death's Majesty, you have to minus her down to only 1 loyalty to pull only 1 creature back. So, you build your deck around, like, because if you are playing Liliana Death's Majesty as a reanimator deck, you want to have something really big like Muldrotha or Belzenlock or something like that to pull back. But with the zombies deck, you could just flood the board again when you use her -3. So, and she does defend herself really well too, compared to Liliana Death's Majesty, because she can give something -X, which is kind of important right now when there's Hazoret in the format. So So, in terms of protecting herself, it's not
It is removal. It just happens to be, situational removal. So slamming her on turn 4, if you don't have a couple zombies out, it's really not going to impact much. But it is there for later in the game or anything like that. I mean, she, can get zombies, so that's not that big of an issue. But protecting herself initially might be a little bit challenging.
Oh yeah,
that's true.
That's very true, because the same thing that we knocked Vivienne for, as well as Sarkhan, guys like that. Without the Ajani. Like if you don't have any creatures on board, she is pretty hard to defend. But I think what redeems this Planeswalker is the fact that late game, this can help you recover from a Fumigate or the new board wipe spell, because oh no, you filled your board with zombies, which is what you want to do, but that opens you up to getting blown out by a board wipe, and then late game you have 8 mana or something, you drop this Liliana, and then you -3, and then you get like 2 1-drop zombies and a 2-drop zombie or something. There's a lot of ways that, or you wait till the next turn and you've got your 7 or 8 mana fully untapped, and then you can play a bunch of zombies out of your graveyard. So I just like it as a late game move. It's kind of a really good late game card advantage where you could get who knows how many cards. It's all depends on your curve.
So this is a very to me it's a very interesting card. The way that they have spaced out her abilities and what they do is very interesting to me. I mean, her ultimate does not win her the game. It does not win you the game. It doesn't create an emblem or anything like that. But it's really, really good to kind of just do her -3 if you're playing her late in the game. And like you said, Mike, it kind of serves as like a second form of protection, because you slam it on turn, I don't know, like 6 or something like that. You might be able to play a couple 1-drops from the graveyard, if you choose to go that route. It's certainly not the most powerful like ultimate ability, but it is powerful depending on the situation you play her in, and later in the game is where it actually shines.
Man, unlike dragons, there are a lot more zombies right now in Standard.
Yes, and there's a lot of good zombies in Standard.
And cheaper zombies, too.
Yeah, so zombie decks, they were always on the precipice, I think. I think they might actually have a good chance to kind of break out. Maybe not be a tier 1 deck, but be a very fun, interesting tribal deck with M19.
Well, they actually were a tier 1 deck
in Amonkhet
or in Eldritch.
Innistrad.
Oh, yeah. Innistrad, okay.
Yeah. The other neat thing is, now that we have the change to the legendary Planeswalker rule, she synergizes really well with her other bigger, card from Amonkhet. So
from Death's Majesty.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they synergize perfectly with each other.
Yeah, make a zombie, and the other Liliana also dumps cards in the graveyard, which means, let's see, put the top 3. Okay, so it only triggers when she puts a zombie in the graveyard. It would have been another thing if during this turn you got, a zombie went into the graveyard. That'd be pretty awesome, but
yeah.
I could definitely see a deck where you run 2 of this Liliana, 2 of the other Liliana is like the very top end of your curve, and then just all very low drop zombies for the rest of the deck.
Yeah, I mean, they're reprinting Diagraph Ghoul. What are some other ones?
Oh, we got our
Death
3-drop
Baron.
Yeah, the Death Baron is amazing.
Oh, okay, you guys are gonna flame me for butchering this, but what is this? Phylactery Lich? Is that how you pronounce that?
Phylactery.
Phylactery.
Yeah, like an F.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey guys, there's another name Seiben can't pronounce. Add it to the board. Ha ha ha. Anyway, that's a good zombie right there.
Yeah, possibly. That one's a little conditional because you have to have that artifact in play to get the indestructibility on it. Actually, to play it at all, right? You have to have an artifact out. So, but there are.
Oh, you're right.
There are some low drop artifacts that you can play, pretty pretty easily in most decks like Treasure Map, and actually you wouldn't want to play it on Treasure Map because that one turns into a land eventually. But you know what I mean. There's definitely some that you could synergize with Flacker Lich, but yeah, I think all around she's going to be playable, but narrowly playable in a zombie deck. You know, she's definitely not.
Again, just like Sarkhan, a tribal kind of flair planeswalker, not very good and limited. Now, still probably better than Sarkhan, but still, it depends on way too many zombies to be a top pick in a draft.
Yeah, you wouldn't want a first picker, but man, if you open her in the second pack and you already picked like the zombie lord, she's gonna be pretty sweet.
Yeah, very. So now that's all the planeswalkers at M19. Pretty interesting that we've getting 5 planeswalkers in a core set, and the major set that we've gotten only like 2 or 3 in. So we're getting a lot of planeswalkers this set, but I think that's the pretty standard fare for a core set, right? All the core sets have 5 planeswalkers.
It seems like
they try to do one in each of the colors, so that way you have a I'm playing this color, I like that color, I got a planeswalker in there.
Yeah,
just
so
don't pick red.
They may vary in utility and viability, but there are 5 of them, so
yep, check all the boxes.
Yep. Let's talk about 5 more mythics that are causing a buzz because they are Elder Dragons, and they are the old Elder Dragons with good art. And let's take a look at Arcades the Strategist first. So he is a 3/5 legendary creature Elder Dragon for 1 generic, a green, white, and blue. Flying Vigilance. Whenever a creature with Defender enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. I can't even get through that sentence without laughing. Each creature you control with Defender assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, and can attack as though it didn't have Defender. Wow.
I like the flavor.
He's on a wall. He loves his walls.
He loves his walls. How many walls or cards are with the Defender are there in Standard?
I can start looking that up if you guys want to talk about
wall.
I will look.
Okay.
Treasure wall.
So
that treasure wall, that's very specific.
Just from
it's a wall made of treasure.
Looking around on Twitter and stuff, it seems like she might actually be fairly playable in Modern. I've seen some people say decks with Doorkeeper. Things like that where you can have an alternate win condition with your walls. Might be decent. In Standard, it's going to be a bit of a against the odds type thing, I think.
11 Defenders.
Hey, that is not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
No, yeah.
No, it's
honestly, not bad at all. And they're reprinting Wall of Mist. Man, that's a 5/5 for 2.
Yeah, and there's the Adamantium Wall, I think is called.
What that does?
It can be indestructible.
And gains indestructible.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice.
So I mean, it looks like they're laying the bricks.
For
this one, guys. Oh my god, I did it.
That hurts so much.
Looks like we need a new host.
It is a wall pun. Anyway, yeah, so super weird card. Definitely a build around for someone who loves a challenge. I would say.
Oh boy. You're gonna ask me to make a wall deck, aren't you?
Yes, I'm going to.
Okay.
Dude, technically not all walls. There's a lot of non-wall defenders out there that we can use.
Yeah,
probably.
That's true.
Novice
maybe
Knight.
not super true. A few.
Oh, Novice Knight. Yes, that is a defender.
Oh yeah,
Defender.
And it's in the right colors too. I wonder how many off-color walls there are, or off-color defender creatures there are. Probably not a lot actually, because I think a lot of defenders are white and blue.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so outside of the narrowness of the wallness, I mean, does that really doom this card to just pure obscurity?
I think you're still gonna pick it first pick in limited because it's a 3/5 flying vigilance for 4 mana. That's actually not bad.
Yeah.
Obviously you need good color fixing, so you can get it down on turn 4, but
there's a lot of color fixing.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much in triple M19. I have to look at the cards a little bit more. But I mean, in Dominaria there was a plenty. So I mean, you have to look at each set by set basis. But I'm sure if it has even half the amount that like Dominaria had, it shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, and honestly,
one color off.
Yeah, and even if you can't get it on turn 4, I think it's still fine, even if you have to play it on like turn 5 or 6, because a 3/5 flying vigilance is still going to be good at that point in the game. Yeah. So I think Nitsuhon would even agree that you're pretty much still going to keep this card.
Yeah, I mean, if I get a pick one, I'm going to be grabbing Wall of Mist every day. Just every time I see one, they think it's they think it's gonna wheel. Nah. I'm taking that thing as soon as I see it.
Yeah, and obviously Commander players are psyched, because there's Pillow Fort players out there that are gonna love building a deck around walls, and there's so many walls throughout the history of Magic that you can definitely put one together. So
yeah.
So moving on, let's take a look at Chromium the Immutable. It is a 7/7 legendary Elder Dragon for 4 generic, a white, blue, and black. Flash. This spell cannot be countered. Flying. Discard a card. Until end of turn, Chromium the Mutable becomes a human with base power and toughness 1/1, loses all abilities, and gains hexproof. It can't be blocked this turn.
Sign me up for this.
Yes.
The art on this is just awesome too.
Yes.
It's just perfect for the type of card it is.
Oh, and
beautiful card.
Seiben, can you explain the flavor behind the ability as well?
So, Chromium, in a weird instance, turned himself into a character named a trickster of some kind, basically just a human walking around. So, I mean, he has a lot of flavor in his card. That just so happens to be a really, really nice ability.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I mentioned on Twitter, Nezahal, the Primal Tide, is just useless now. Unless you're playing blue-white control, obviously, because this is Esper colors, so it kind of forces you into Esper. But honestly, Esper is the better deck, in my opinion, especially now that this card has been printed, because holy cow, it's just... on so many levels, it's so good. There's definitely ways you can deal with the 1/1 human, because you can try to trick him into transforming him and then fumigate or something like that. But that's a lot of mana to take care of that card, and the fact that you only have to pitch one card to activate the ability. In a control deck, you almost always have at least 5 or 6 cards in your hand, so it should never be a problem, especially with Flash, because you just flashed it in the end of their turn, and it's got flying. That's so much better than Nezahal. As a control player, I'm psyched for this card, for sure.
Yeah, and it can't be countered, so it's perfect for in the counter versus counter decks.
Yeah, Mike, I saw you blowing up Twitter, basically. I mean, you're what I would consider the control expert in my sphere of knowledge. I don't talk to many control players. We tend to not get along. But I mean, you certainly love Chromium a lot. And I mean, it's obviously built to be an answer to a control mirror. Yep. Whoever gets this out first basically is going to win.
Man, I almost just want to play it as a one of in the main deck, to be totally honest, because especially on Arena, because of the way Arena plays, when you're playing best of one, I think he's 100% a card you just want to have in your main deck. But in competitive play, best 2 out of 3, I'd still almost want to have him in there because, again, he's a flash 7/7. And he doesn't get a spell back like Torrential Gearhulk does, but the fact that he's a flyer means that he can close out games faster. And there's so many cases where he's still just amazing, across the board. I just really like him.
And just so you guys know, all these Elder Dragons are super flavorful cards. On top of having just beautiful artwork that they really wanted to push to the extreme, because the last time these guys were printed, don't know if you guys know, but they were hideous.
Oh, I'll pull up the other one. I'd say Chromium's probably the best looking out of the group.
Oh, absolutely, because it just looks like a weird robot dinosaur.
Yeah,
fine.
He looks like something out of the old Transformers cartoons.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I couldn't think of what are the Transformers that transform into dinosaurs? Dinobots.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm thinking of? Yes, it's a Dinobot.
Yeah.
Let's move over to Nicol Bolas' sister, Palladia Mors, the Ruiner. 6/6 legendary creature Elder Dragon for 3 generic, a red, green, and white. Flying, Vigilance, Trample. Palladia Mors, the Ruiner, has hexproof if it hasn't dealt damage yet.
Oh, no.
Not a fan?
I think this is the first bad Elder Dragon.
But it has red in the mana cost. Can you reconsider?
Well, see, that's why it's bad. Because it just it has red, so it automatically has to be awful. No, it's not awful though. Nicole, it is actually not awful.
It's not awful, and I'm going to play it.
It's not going to be super playable in standard, unfortunately, because there's just so many cases where it's going to lose the hexproof and then just get Vraska's Contempted, cast out, things like that.
Yeah.
I will give it that. Yeah. It does dodge Seal Away because it has Vigilance. That's a big plus.
Oh, yeah. So, it's the wording on this card is so weird to me. It's just like, it's a huge body with all of these keywords, and you want to be smashing with it all the time. But smashing with it, or even blocking with it, opens it up to what you're trying to prevent, which is removal, which is the whole reason that you love the hexproof. And it's funny that they say damage yet, indicating that if you deal damage to a creature, player, planeswalker, any damage whatsoever, that hexproof is gone, and most likely your Palladia Mors is gone. Palladia Mors is done. She's whatever.
It is still a 6 mana 6/6 in dinosaur colors.
I mean, that's true. It is dino colors, and not technically a dinosaur, but
close enough, right? Baby Chandra would say it is a dinosaur.
And then she'd rip the card in half.
Dragons, dinosaurs, same difference.
I mean, the last thing I'll say about Palladia Mors is just that, like Mike said, in standard right now, control is just such a thing, and removal is so good. Right after Palladia does damage, it's gonna die. So more likely than not, it's going to die, especially since you sunk 6 mana in it. You have to wait until you can actually have the mana out to player. Your opponent's probably going to have an answer. Not having hexproof all the time, very narrowly, even when she blocks, she's going to be killed probably. So definitely, just not the best. Just not the best out of them all. If
it had just said when she attacks and deals damage, she loses hexproof, she'd be that much better, because then she could just sit there in cases where, like you've kind of, felt out your opponent, that they've got removal, then you can just hang back, and like wait for, better moment to strike. But the fact that it can't even block, that's just really stinks.
Yeah.
And then
just changing the verbiage on it to damage to player would have made it a remarkably better card.
Yeah. And there's just better dragons. I think that's honestly, when it boils down to it, there's just so many better flyers, dragons. You're just better off with something else, unfortunately.
Compared to what she does, I'm actually shocked that she's 6th mana, to be honest.
Yeah, and like a lot of people are saying, like Zakama just does better. If you're gonna.
I've seen that comparison made too.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's enough about Palladia. She's a very mediocre kind of Elder Dragon. But let's move on to Vivictus Asmadi the Dire, 6/6 legendary creature Elder Dragon, 3 generic, black, red, green, flying. Whenever Vivictus Asmadi the Dire attacks, for each player, choose target permanent that player controls. Those players sacrifice those permanents. Each player who sacrificed a permanent this way reveals the top card of their library, then puts it onto the battlefield if it's a permanent. What a gamble.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
This is the Russian roulette of Elder Dragons.
Yeah, I feel like this is a commander card. I know it's, again, a classic thing to say, but...
Yeah.
This feels like a for fun commander card that goes into the Dragon Tribal commander deck, but
I don't know. I mean, of course, I can envision a situation where you want to take that risk. It's going to be every time that you want to use that ability. It's just you have to weigh the pros and the cons, and you have to basically run a calculation in your head based on the deck that you're playing against. If it's correct to have them destroy a permanent and then risk what they have on top, I'm going to say most of the time that you're going to do that, it's probably to remove a huge threat, and they probably won't replace it with something better most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, there is a case to be made that you're always at least removing something, but the downside is just so steep, especially against certain, like this could just never be a main deckable card, because if you're facing something like Mono Green Stompy, and you just happen to flip a Galta Primal Hunger off the top of their deck, things aren't going to be looking too great for you.
I mean, you basically just describe this card perfectly. Like, if you're going to run, if you need something in your sideboard that's removal, why are you going to pick this 6/6 dragon that has a chance of, getting something worse on the top that costs 6 mana, Why not just run regular removal?
I will say, against a control deck, the other player is almost always going to whiff, because there's just... Although I say that, and against blue-white control, Cast Out is a permanent, and Seal Away is a permanent, and if they flip that off the top, you don't even get to deal damage to them, because those hit the battlefield before the Victus actually deals damage. And then they just get to take your guy for free. So, like if you got a Teferi off the top of their deck, you get to kill the Teferi because it can't react at all. Or if you get like a counter spell off the top, they just get rid of one of their counters, which is kind of nice. But with all the enchantment removal running around, it's just not good.
Yeah, not having hexproof or anything like that really does hinder the Victus here.
Yeah, I think I would like it a little bit better if it had May. But it doesn't.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that would be a lot better.
It would be a lot better. It just gives you a little bit more flexibility. But I think we can all agree that while this card is a gamble to play or use its ability, it does have a huge advantage in that it probably has the best upgrade in terms of art to its original printing.
Oh yeah, I can pull that up here.
That is the ugliest Elder Dragon.
Yeah. Definitely different standards back then.
Yeah, so it's like middle school photos compared to your college photos, right?
Yep. Although honestly, the old Victus is much better than the new one.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, insanely expensive.
Because it's got Jund Breathing, which is not too awful. And it's 7 mana,
and you do have to.
Oh no, it's 8 mana. Okay, yeah.
You do have to destroy it if you don't pay 3 mana every upkeep. But you've just paid 8 mana for him. I'm sure you can pay the 3.
Yeah, definitely.
No problem.
Yeah. Anyway, so out of all the Elder Dragons, we'll get to the big boy in a second. But out of those 4 Elder Dragons, I think we are all on the same page in saying that Chromium is by far the best.
Yeah, he's certainly the most playable. There's like a case you can make for Arcades being the most fun, because Commander players are going to get a kick out of it. They've been waiting for a really good Defender Commander, and she kind of fits the bill there.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, Chromium's probably the best in Standard. But in Limited, where all these guys are completely fine if you want to go that route, I really like Palladia Mors for Limited.
Yeah, she's not too awful there. And green is a better color to be in if you're going to ramp to something in Limited, whereas Esper is kind of a hard color to get that much mana to play Chromium. So.
Plus, if you open the Sarkhan, it works really well with this dragon.
So in Nicole's fancy land, she's opened a really niche 2 mythic combo in her draft.
Yeah, and the rest of my rares are also dragons, so they fit right in.
Oh, isn't that gonna feel awful in draft when you open Sarkhan as your mythic? Ugh.
You're just like,
I mean, I would take it. I would take it literally out of spite to the pack gods.
Be like, bring me all the dragons.
And then you get 2,
all
and then you just hate
them.
it. Oh my god, you went up to 3. Anyway, let's merge our 2 topics because we were talking about Planeswalkers, we're talking about Elder Dragons. Let's merge the 2 with Nicol Bolas the Ravager / Nicol Bolas the Arisen. So this is a flip Planeswalker. Comes into play as a 4/4 flying legendary creature Elder Dragon for 1 generic, blue, black, red. When Nicol Bolas the Ravager enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. You pay 4 generic, blue, black, red again. Nicol Bolas, you exile Nicol Bolas the Ravager, then return him onto the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery, and he turns into Nicol Bolas the Arisen. God, there's a lot of text between these 2 cards.
Yes.
7 loyalty Planeswalker, +2, draw 2 cards, -3, Nicol Bolas the Arisen deals 10 damage to target creature or Planeswalker, -4, put target creature or Planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, -12 ultimate, exile all but the bottom card of target player's library. They put them on a 1-turn clock.
Yeah.
That -4 targets any graveyard.
Yes, any graveyard. So let's first focus on Nicol Bolas the Ravager because that's what it's going to come into play as, and then we can move over to Nicol Bolas the Arisen. So what do you guys think about his Elder Dragon, his creature form, before his Planeswalker Sparking Knights?
4 mana 4/4 is fine-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's more than just a 4 mana 4/4. He's also got makes your opponent discard a card, which isn't too bad.
No, that's not bad at all.
So I mean, I've seen worse for less, or worse for more. That's what I want to say. But I mean, you do have the mana issue, which is not going to be an issue in Constructed, more likely than not. But
well, it actually is going to be a little bit of an issue in Constructed because Grixis just typically. I guess we did talk about this before because, before Dominaria came out, Grixis midrange was one of the premier decks, but that just got supplanted by, a few other variations. Like it was one of the few decks that could fight Temur, Temur Energy. But now, obviously, we've got blue-white and mono-red and black-red. So yeah. I guess it could be possible that we see like a Grixis mid-range deck come back. But I think the issue is you've got, again, kind of a high mana curve where Nicol Bolas the Ravager might be only a one of in that kind of a deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and the land support seems a little sketchy once Kaladesh rotates out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's in like 80 days, something like that.
Yeah, I guess it all depends on what dual lands we get when the next Ravnica set comes out. Because if we do get the enemy-colored shock lands, like everyone thinks, then this might be pretty viable for a mana base.
Yeah.
But at face value, Nicol Bolas the Ravager, I mean, his enter the battlefield not super good. I mean, it's something, but it's definitely not like, oh wow, I'm gonna be super excited to play this card. Obviously, what you're wanting to get to is that 2 extra mana. 3 extra mana to flip him into his Planeswalker form.
Yeah. Yes, that is the goal for this card right here.
Yes, which 3 more turns probably because you're not going to be ramping too much unless you have like treasure or something.
Which you could. I mean, it's blue and black.
Yeah, I still think it opens up, like, if you're just going 3 turns that you can flip it, that's a lot of time for your opponent to react.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
But, of course, when he turns into a Planeswalker, the game changes, because you just won the game, probably, because this guy's insane as a Planeswalker.
Which is fitting. I mean, it is Nicol Bolas.
So, and this is technically pre-mending Nicol Bolas, I believe, in his story, kind of. This is when he first becomes a Planeswalker, so pre-mending, no holds bars. He can create worlds with a snap of his finger and destroy him in a snap of his finger. So of course his abilities are gonna be very strong.
Yeah, this is pretty much one of the most powerful Nicol Bolas planeswalkers by quite a bit, I would say.
Yeah.
The only problem that I noticed is that his flip ability can only be cast as a sorcery.
Yes.
Which means that it leaves him open to getting kicked pretty hard here, because you're gonna spend your 7 mana to flip him, but if they've got a disallow, Vraska's Contempt, cast out, something like that, you're not gonna have mana open to counter whatever they're gonna throw at him. Mm-hmm. Which is not the worst, because I believe because they could respond to the flip with Vraska's Contempt, so you just paid 7 mana and just got blown out because you just spent an entire turn and all 7 of your mana just to get Nicol Bolas Vraska's Contempted. So as you pay all the mana to flip it. Oof, that's
Mike,
rough.
You're being too sensible. We have to be talking about this card in the best light possible because it's Nicol Bolas and it's pretty great. But I will say, sorry, go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, you can't even target a player
with
his -3.
Yeah.
Burn Nicole doesn't like that.
So the one thing I'll say is it's funny that they made him a flip planeswalker. I'm not sure it was specifically designed this way. It's super flavorful, so I love it. But I mean, how do a lot of people get Nicol Bolas on the field now? In standard.
They don't.
Play it from the graveyard. You can't do it with this guy. He's going to come in as Nikolas the Ravager, and it's still going to have all the follies that we cited already, where your opponent has the knowledge and has the time to respond to him. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
As good as this Planeswalker card is, I do think his normal Nicol Bolas the Ravager, while being a 4/4 flyer for 4 that does kinda almost protect himself a little bit, if they have to discard a card, maybe they have a low hand and they have to discard their removal, but that's a super niche and narrow situation. At least it's something, but I think it leaves itself way too open and will rarely get to be able to get that first ignition of his spark.
Yeah, I think that's just the thing with any kind of transformation ability that requires paying mana. You just always have that downside where you're going to pay all that mana and then just get blown out with that ability on the stack, and then the next turn they get to untap with everything and you're completely tapped out on mana on the turn that you'd like to be doing that, because ideally you want to flip him on 7, because if you wait too much longer, you're probably already losing the game at that point. So he kind of suffers from the win more contagion that a lot of Nicol Bolas cards have. Like, that's why Nicol Bolas doesn't see play in standard right now, because he's just very win more.
If you're playing him, you're already winning. So
exactly, yeah.
What is that card in Dominaria that gives a creature hexproof? I can't remember. It was
Curator's Board.
Yes, I think that's it. Anyway, I mean, if you give Nicol Bolas the Ravager hexproof, hey, it becomes a lot better, but then you're going to lose that card as soon as you flip him, so...
Yeah, and that card also suffers from the same exact thing as the flip. Paying for the flip is... you could get blown out as you're targeting. Just like all enchant creatures in standard, there's a reason enchant creatures or auras don't get played in standard very often. Unless it's like a very low-cost creature in like a SRAM deck where you're going to play the aura and then draw a card. Yeah, that makes sense, but in a Grixis shell, not very likely.
Right. But Nicol Bolas the Arisen, I can say, is probably one of the most powerful planeswalkers in terms of its abilities and its initial loyalty counters. Flip or otherwise, just has some of the most powerful oppressive abilities we'll ever see on a planeswalker. But there's a reason why it's going to be hard to get him, because he is that good. So don't expect to be seeing him all over standard.
Oh yeah, no doubt he's definitely pretty awesome, but I think the cost just doesn't line up.
But in limited, you slam this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, good.
110%.
I got that right.
Yeah. Even just his creature, 4/4 flying for 4 that makes their opponent discard a card is fine. 100% fine.
Yeah, because that's always a 2-for-1. Yeah, it's kind of like a better Hypnotic Spectre. Because Hypnotic Spectre, you have to hit your opponent to trigger the discard. Whereas here, you get to play it, and they automatically have to discard. It's kind of like Dinrova Horror. Not quite as good as Dinrova Horror, but classically, anything that has an ETB trigger that makes your opponent discard a card is a-okay, because you're always getting value out of it. And counters are like, very few and far between and limited, so you rarely have to worry about getting it countered. So
yeah.
Last thing I'll say on Nicol Bolas, this is where we see the transition in flavor for Nicol Bolas from a creature to a planeswalker. I like the way he looks as a creature than his planeswalker smirk.
Yeah, it's kind of that problem everybody complains about, that he's got kind of like a snub nose when he's...
Like, why does he have to look like a lizard man? Why can't he just look like a dragon?
Yeah.
Like, he's so pretty as the legendary creature.
Agreed.
He's got the beautiful colors and everything, and then he's just like, I'm gonna take over the world.
They were just like, you know what? Oh my god. They were sitting around I'm not gonna say anything bad about the artist, but they were just sitting around the development team and they're like, you know what? I love Abomination. I love that character in Marvel. And let's make Nicol Bolas look like that in all of his artwork.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good part good spot to end the podcast, though, guys. I really want to thank Mike from Mythic Tales and BadwolfMTG, aka Nicole, for joining us tonight on the Aether Hub, around the Aether Cooler. Looked at the Planeswalkers, looked at some Elder Dragons for M19. If you guys want to just pimp your own channels here real quick.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'll go ahead first. BadwolfMTG, you can find me on Twitter and YouTube. I make cakes and then I eat them, and they're delicious.
Wow, guys, can't get better than that.
Well, you also make gameplay videos and stuff, so don't sell yourself short there.
Yes, that's true too. But the cakes are really good.
This is true. Her cakes look pretty incredible.
They taste so good. I need more.
And I'm Mike. My channel's Mythic Tales, but lately you'll see me mostly on the Aether Hub. We just, Seiben and I just finished up a video about Atraxa. So if you're a Commander player, or if you just like Phyrexia in general, I tried to capture the mood and feel of Phyrexia. And I think it turned out pretty darn good. Also, if you check my Twitter, I do my own little animations there that probably end up in a video of Seiben's eventually, but I recently animated Liliana Untouched by Death, the new Planeswalker card that turned out pretty decent. But yeah, thank you guys for your support. If you haven't already, check us out on Patreon. That's what makes my collaborations with Seiben possible, so if you got an extra buck, feel free to throw it our way, and it definitely goes a long way letting us know that you guys care and want to keep seeing our Living Lore series and all the other stuff we're working on.
Yeah, guys, don't you care? Don't you just want to see all the great animations all the time? We'll provide a link to our Patreon in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. And of course, we're going to be doing these possibly on a weekly basis, so make sure you guys follow us on Twitch as well, because we're actually doing this live while also recording it for a video later, so make sure you follow us there. And really, that's it for this episode of Around the Aether Cooler, as I stutter on my own title. Look at that.
And please let us know in the comments if you guys have any suggestions, if you want to hear us cover certain topics or anything. Yeah, we'd love to hear it. So.
And I swear to God, guys, if you say learn the card names, I'm just gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose my mind.
All right, I'm writing that down so I remember to say that to you.
Fantastic. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys.